we had this idea for the readings because we didn't want to have just random readings throughout the conference because we knew that was going to get very inconvenient and confusing. Sorry, it's been a long day, it's been a long year. But so we decided, let's limit it to new haiku books. We thought, well, there'd be about 10 or so, and we were absolutely overwhelmed. We got 30, and there's actually a waiting list for people if anybody drops out. So we were absolutely swamped, and so we had to figure out what to do with this. And so we had these Kaleidoscope readings. We thought it might be kind of fun just for one haiku poet after another to get up and read their new work. So that's what we're doing tonight. We first thought of 15 minutes, but we had so many we had to limit it to 10, which I think is okay. The ones that I've done here are timed to that. What we're going to do is my beautiful assistant here, Alyssa, is going to be the timer. And at 9 minutes, she's going to go ding. One ring-a-dingy. And at 10 minutes, she's going to do this, and you are expected to leave. We have a vicious Doberman pincher. So, I'm going to take the prerogative of reading first, and I was originally going to do just one book that I had something to do with. This is Raymond Roseliep, the man who loved the rose, the man of art who loved the rose, by Donna Bowerly. Donna spent 10 years on this book working on it, and I spent 2 editing it. I think it is the first full-length biography of a haiku poet outside Japan, and I know it is the first publication from the Haiku Foundation Press, and we thank Jim Cation for picking up and dignifying this book with their imprint. So I wanted to read a little bit from that, but I also have 2 other books that I've been involved with in the past year in an editorial capacity that I'm going to read, and I'm going to do all of this in 10 minutes. You got the clock running? Okay.
It's already 2.
All right, thank you. So, Raymond Roseliep was born in 1917 and he died in 1983. He's closely associated with Dubuque, Iowa, and was never very far away from that place for more than a few months. He attended and later taught at Loras College in Dubuque. He was an ordained priest and frequently was at odds with his archbishop because of his writings. Groundbreaking and iconoclastic poet who shook up and even offended the haiku establishment, including Anna Vakar, about whom we're going to hear later at one of these Kaleidoscope sessions. Roseliep came to haiku from long poetry, and he did novel work in concrete forms and was a great advocate of using Western poetic devices in haiku. I find most remarkable that he founded the only Japanese-style school of haiku that I know about in the United States. That is, he was the sensei, and generations of people have followed him. And probably in the West, yeah. 2 representatives of Raymond Roseliep's legacy are in our conference and in the audience, I think, Francine and Bill Pauley, of course. So the Dubuque School derives from Raymond Roseliep. And a lot of other people like Lee Gerga and Randy Brooks are also very much influenced by Raymond Roseliep. So many wonderful haiku of Roseliep's to choose from. Here's the one that offended Anna Vakar. Campfire extinguished, the woman washing dishes in a pan of stars. He wrote poems of loss, never expecting the lilies in November, nor the small coffin. He found comfort in Zen and what he called his poems of mu meaning emptiness, thank you. Everything is no thing. Haiku with a social edge. The banker cancels a moth. And very funny Senryu. After Beethoven, he gets the furnace roaring. Mostly, though, Roseliep is known for his close examination of his psyche, his feelings about his God, himself, his mortality, and his sexuality, often expressed in erotic haiku. Imagine that from a priest, which is part of his problem with the Archbishop. Ordering my tombstone, the cutter has me feel his Gothic R. Christ in hand, swing gentle sack between my legs. The second book that I wanted to introduce was by another pioneer of American haiku, L.A. Davidson. This book had a sort of a curious history. Tadao Okazaki, a Japanese haiku poet and editor of the English language journal New Cicada, was a great friend and believer in L.A. Davidson back in the early years of haiku in the 70s. And after she died, he sent a certain amount of money to the Haiku Society of America to print a book of her haiku posthumously. The Haiku Society of America couldn't figure out what to do with this, or who should do it. They went through a number of people who might edit it. The money just sat there for many years. And finally, L.A. Davidson's daughter and literary executive, Laura Tanna, decided, well, she was going to publish it herself for the 50th anniversary for the 10th anniversary of Agnes Davidson's death. And so she put out this little book, which is based on 50 favorite haiku that L.A. Davidson herself chose before she died. Between fishing rods, on the seawall, a heron stalks the bait pail. A bonsai bent into the shape of a non-existent wind. The Mississippi, a mile wide, Winona, and still rising. One of my favorites of Agnes is not in the book, really defines the concept of sabi. In the dark lobby of the residential hotel, a feeling of autumn. And perhaps her best known haiku, beyond stars, beyond star. And the third book that I had a hand in was this new collection of translations of Shiki, done by John Brandy, who lives up in the mountains not far from here. John wanted to be here but was not able to do so, so I told him I would read some of these for him too. Some of my favorites. This is one of Shiki's most translated haiku. It sizes up his worldview. Autumn departs. For me, no gods, no Buddhas. The remaining haiku I'll read are all first translations by John and Noriko Kawasaki Martinez, who is my Japanese teacher and John's co-translator in this book here. And these are all first time in English as far as I know. Last year's dream, I wake to this year's reality. A violet left uneaten by the calf. This one, also not previously translated, gives a slightly different take on Shiki's most famous and controversial coxcomb haiku. Coxcombs must be 14 or 15. The new one is coxcomb, flourishing again this autumn. And yet another, bamboo fence, golden mums on one side, wild mums on the other. Okay, Sonia Coman is a remarkable lady. I don't know how many of you have met her. I first met her at a Haiku North America in Boston, which would have been, I can't remember exactly the year. She was 13 years old, and she came from Romania with her mother. And she was already writing haiku, wonderful haiku, in English as well as in French, Romanian, and I don't know what other language. Since then, she's come to the United States and is married. She's working on her doctor's degree at Columbia University and is now writing haiku in about 6 different languages, including Japanese. She's a really remarkable young lady and absolutely lovely person. She just got a new job a week before we started here and couldn't come. But she had planned to come, and she donated her the money for registration to the conference, so I said that I would read in her place. Her book is called Passages, and unfortunately I don't have a copy, and I don't think we have copies back in the bookstore either, but start my clock again. Okay. Passages. Passage is life, in its excitement and in its brevity, going from point A to point B, knowing the destination or not knowing it, wanting to know it or preferring not to. My most vivid memories are of moments of passage. Walking along corridors, from my room to my mother's room, from home to school, from my boyfriend's apartment to my own, from my hometown to the capital, and from my home country abroad. In Japan, poetry and traveling have been practiced together across the centuries. Popular wisdom and Zen teachings suggest that the journey is more valuable than the destination. In the Christian worldview, the way in which one travels through life is most essential. Romanian folk poetry often evokes a central event in the lives of shepherds, the transhumance, or the seasonal transfer of livestock from mountaintops to lower lands. My forthcoming collection of haikus is titled Passages, in honor of this central concept. All poems are somehow about passage, passage through space, passage through time, passage as transformation, and metaphorical passage. Also, all poems in the book are in English, followed by my translations in 4 languages, French, Italian, Japanese, and Romanian. The process of translation is in itself a form of passage, and for me, an integral part of the process of creation. I hope you'll enjoy a selection of poems from this forthcoming book. My first participation in Haiku North America was 16 years ago in Boston in 2001. I was 13 years old.
Wow.
Since then, a lot's happened. I grew up in some ways. All along, I've been reading and writing haiku. With regrets for not being there in person, but grateful to Charlie for reading my poems to you, I'm happy to participate remotely and wish everyone an excellent conference and a wonderful time in Santa Fe.
Right.
Night train, hundreds of dreams cross the river. Rainy day, a bare laundry line bridging windows. Variously shaped shadows of clouds cross the mountain. Winter sunrise, the train leaves the night behind. The old clock still strikes the hour, but a different hour. Same old dream, freed from the bundle, a translucent balloon. The cries of geese louder and nearer, not alone in the night. Over the fence, their hands reaching for each other. Stepping on the lines that divide the squares, checkered floor. Dance rehearsal, bowing to infinite bows in the mirror. Alone, silence turns into sound. A long hallway from your room to the door, a long silence too. Shower of petals, a lineup of gray buildings, for a moment, gone. The white and the pink, almost touching, neighboring cherry trees. The waves of the sea, is it always the same waves? Street at dusk, the stillness of gates left ajar. Thin clouds across the Baroque mirror in the trash. Amphitheater, butterflies swirl with no audience. Withering dahlia, the time it takes for a petal to fall. Don't put anything on the windowsill, there's moonlight on it. Thank you for both me and